Hello out there, all my nieces and nephews, and yes, that means you. This is a story time with Uncle Bucky, and I'm Uncle Bucky to everybody here. Tonight, I'm going to just cut away for a little bit and read something a little bit special. It's a story written by me. It's not very long. It's a short story. It's called "It's Not the Size That Counts." It was published originally in a magazine called Midnight Zoo Magazine, the best horror, science fiction, fantasy, and science fact, Volume 1, Issue 2, March, April 1991. So, I just decided I'll read one of mine just for a new thing, because I'm going to get to my books eventually. I just want to read all the classics. And this one, I'm forewarning you, it's a little bit on the strange side, a little bit on the sexual side. So if that frightens you, go watch Friends or something on TV. But here we go. It's not the size that counts, and it's humorous at the same time. Tang, tang, ting, tang. I'm going to start over. Tang, tang, ting, tang. The metallic notes poured dreamlike into the warmness of her bed, like a voice singing erotic songs to her while she slept. Again, Melanie woke with the feeling that she had been watched through the night. Not just watched, but adored, maybe even lusted after. It had been occurring more frequently, this queer, exciting, clandestine feeling, but on this particular morning, the feeling was accompanied by a phenomenon that could not be blamed merely on wishful dreaming. This morning she woke with her t-shirt pulled up over her breasts, and her right nipple was moist with saliva. She sat erect, protectively cupping her breasts in her hands, and peered pensively around the room. The windows were locked as always, the bedroom door closed. There was no way for anyone to get into the room without her knowing it, anyone who wasn't there already, meaning her lethargic husband, Keith. He lay beside her, snoring through his nostrils like a whistling antique kettle. She was puzzled and a little frightened. Before putting coffee water on to boil, Melanie double-checked the doors and windows throughout the house. There were no telltale signs of forced entry, no chipped paint or scrape marks around the hinges. Not a clue. No, this fellow was crafty. Ingenious, perhaps. She knew that she had been molested during the night, and she liked it. She laughed quietly at herself. Yeah, she thought, I liked it. She liked it in the same way that she had liked smoking cigarettes under the bleachers during football games in high school, and French kissing Tony Glassman in the barn when his girlfriend Charlene was just 3 stalls down, bitching about the smell of the manure, and shoplifting candy from Carpy's Corner when she was 12. Back in her wild days, when there was still a cauldron of adventure seething inside of her. Back when things didn't need to be so damn black and white. Was it the chance of getting caught that made those things so exciting? The fear, the unknown, the mystery, the thrill of being naughty and getting away with it? In another time, she might have wished that it were Keith seducing her in her sleep. Another time long ago, but certainly not anymore. Years had come and gone since her passions had consumed them. Their lovemaking had all but dwindled from prolonged sweaty bouts in the arena of their bed to an occasional word of pretended affection across the table at breakfast and a few kind words before bed at night. Sex was the furthest thing from Keith's mind or hers. Now, this was something different entirely. This was something irresistibly wrong. Thoughts materialized. She could almost envision a face, a dark-haired intruder with the mysterious green eyes, as handsome and debonair as Errol Flynn, as devilish as Jack Nicholson, as ethereal nocturnal visitor comprised from the essence of substance of night itself, exercising his own bizarre sexual rituals at her expense. It was both eerie and perverse, but God, how she enjoyed this macabre seduction after the years of inactivity in the bedroom. It wasn't always forbidden. The thought of someone in her bedroom at night sucking on her nipples while she slept should have been cause for alarm for her or any woman. But strangely, she was not scared or angry. She did not feel violated. Not really. Not after experiencing multiple orgasms for the first time in her life. Melanie took the Italian sausage from the refrigerator and began to slice, smiling to herself. What is wrong with me? She asked herself absent-mindedly. Through the next week, from the moment she rose from bed each morning, Melanie yearned for nightfall to hurry with unbridled anticipation. For the stillness of the night, for sleep, she stopped and stared blankly out the window for the sound of little feet running in the rain gutter around the perimeter edge of the rooftop. Melanie shivered. She had forgotten about that. The pang, tang, tang, so soft, so metallic, like leather soles against aluminum. But the sound was much smaller than that. So quiet that no one could hear it but her. Keith had never heard it. Even when she took him and begged him to listen, he just rebuffed her and went back to his soggy toast dreams. He never heard it because he didn't want to. It happened again and again, along with the odd feeling of being watched, seduced, until it became the norm, and all fear had melted into the shadows of the night. Melanie found herself humming and smiling a lot during those days. "So what's got you so perky lately?" Keith asked over a plate of bacon, cottage cheese, and sliced tomatoes. "You're awfully chipper again this morning, Mel." "Oh, an intruder has been walking through our walls and sucking on my breast at night while you're snoring, dear," she thought. She passed him his juice. "You got something, a clump," she said, brushing at her lip. He wiped a piece of cottage cheese from his mustache. "I've just been having wonderful dreams, Keith." He looked at her with that all-knowing glare he loved to exhibit. "Ah, more sex dreams. Well, have at it." She sat down across from him, smiling coyly. Have at it, she intended to. Still hearing noises up in the rain gutter, he chided mockingly. "Oh yes, husband, that's how my lover announces his arrival each night," she was thinking. Melanie found it easy to remain good-natured, as she always did when Keith attempted to goad her. "I am," she answered. "In fact, I am so sure it was a dream. I'm not so sure it was a dream at all. I believe that there was a man in our room the other night. He pulled up my shirt and sucked on my breasts." "Good God, Melanie," he spat, "until I had an orgasm. A multiple orgasm, Keith, something that has never happened before." Don't, he stuttered, crushing the morning's paper in his fist. "Don't talk like that, for Christ's sakes. You're losing your goddamn mind, Melanie." "Keith, you're a sad, frustrated woman, Mel. No rational person could carry on like that. And if you think I'm turned on by that gibberish, you're sadly mistaken. I'm telling the truth, Keith. I don't care if you believe me, and I don't care if you're turned on at all. That thought never even crossed my mind. It happened. Multiple orgasms, and I liked it." Keith's face was apple red. His eyes skimmed the headlines theatrically for a few minutes more. Then he tossed the paper on the seat beside his and walked briskly out of the room. "Maybe I'll bring a hammer to bed and take care of your little aphrodisiac once and for all," he snarled from the front door. A few seconds later, and he reappeared. "Why would you talk like that? Like some whore? You're insane, Mel. I swear I think you've lost it for good." Melanie wanted to laugh at him. "What's wrong, Keith? Are you jealous?" "Of what? A little gnome that lives up in our rain gutter? Well, yeah, sure, I'm jealous. Don't be so goddamn self-flattering, Mel. It's pathetic." "Oh, you're such a hypocrite." "Oh, bullshit. I'm not getting into this with you again." Melanie washed his back as he departed again. "Even a gnome is a better lover than you are, Keith. I'm sorry, but it's true." He slammed the door. He was coming home late that night, and when he did, he reeked of rum and coke, his favorite of many vices. He went straight to the bedroom and fell face down on the bed, snoring like a jackhammer before he could even kick off his shoes. Melanie helped to undress him and get him into his pajama bottoms, although she was sure he wouldn't remember her gesture the next morning. Melanie smiled as she watched him from her seat at her vanity. That snore, it was such a wonderful sound, signaling the coming of night. That ratchety sound, throaty gurgle meant that romance and passion, mystery and the macabre were all around the next dark corner. It was a beacon, a harbinger of allure. It called to the darkness, to the Sandman, to the rain gutter outside their bedroom window, to her night lover. Humming a favorite melody, Melanie took a long, steamy hot bath in perfumed water. She painted her fingernails and toenails for the first time in 2 years and wore her sexiest negligee. Her auburn hair was salon perfect. It was also wonderfully bizarre and so uncharacteristic of her. Her friends, Keith's friends, wouldn't they just die? She was acting like a young schoolgirl in love, or better yet, in lust. But there was safety in the knowledge that it was just dreams. There was no crime in that. She was committing no real adultery here. It was not a legitimate affair. That's what she kept telling herself. She was doing nothing wrong because there was no real person involved, not flesh and blood, only what she created in her uninhibited imagination, the land of fantasy. And she supposed if there really was someone or something physically involved, some misty intruder like a ghost or a vampire or some deviant creature of the dark, it was beyond her conscious control, and that made it all right too. Perfumed and pretty, she fell into the clean coolness of her sheets and was quickly asleep. The sounds came sometime later. Pang, tang, tang, pang from the gutter outside. Instead of carrying those sounds into a dream, as she usually did, she awoke, almost immediately, wide-eyed. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It read 3:22, 5 hours since she had gone to bed. Her heart was fluttering. She strained to hear the sounds. There was nothing at first, but finally, faint, coming around the corner of the house outside, toward her bedroom window, pang, tang, tang. Melanie sat up on her elbows, straining ear and eye. Keith snored beside her. On impulse, she reached for the light, but she paused, arm outstretched, then drew it back, retreating under her bed covers. Unconsciously, she found herself stroking her own nipple. What was there to fear? He had been there before, maybe many times, and she had only experienced thrill and uncanny dark delight. She had to give in to this thing, bare her heart and soul to it, and whatever else the spirit might want to partake of. Concentrating, Melanie allowed the fear to pass. She made it pass. She lay back, gently, and feigned sleep. Curiosity could just go ahead and kill the cat tonight. She felt a tingle as the temptation to bare her breast to the intruder came over her. Instead, slightly nervous, she had just uncovered one bare leg, the one on the outside of the bed, and she waited. Time passed slowly. She could feel her heart pounding under the lacy negligee, hear its sound thumping in her ears. She was perspiring slightly, a passion sweat. Minutes passed. Sleep was about to overcome her again when she decided to crack an eye just to check. What she saw, standing on the makeup stand next to her bed only 3 feet away, nearly startled a cry from her. Her heart tripped like a snare drum, and she felt her body tremble as she attempted to maintain steady breathing. In and out, she told herself, easy, slow, sleepily, so she wouldn't disturb him. Again, she barely cracked her right eye. The man was only a foot tall, if that, maybe shorter, probably about 9 or 10 inches, but stocky, his head the size of a lemon. Large hands and nose. He was dressed very odd, although Melanie had actually caught him in the act of undressing. He wore a laced vest. There were no visible colors in the darkness, and knickers, a fur-lined parka, and boots. On his belt hung little bags tied with thread-thin drawstrings, and for some reason Melanie imagined them full of magic ingredients. Dust, sand, seeds, whatever. He had a pliable, soft, cone-shaped hat that gave him the appearance of some storybook creation from an old English fairy tale. Her heart continued to pound. She could see him eyeing her. His tiny, sparkling eyes roamed her leg, up and down, bare from toe to hip. She could see how horny the little devil was, too. Remembering the night of the multiple orgasm and the little man's saliva on her breast, Melanie found the situation increasingly stimulating with each passing second. What else would this little fellow like to try? Come on, Lilliputian, she was thinking. The little man unbuckled his pants and pulled them off. What Melanie saw then nearly made her gasp. His penis dangled between his legs like a third thigh. If only Keith were so well hung. Unconsciously, a moan escaped her mouth. She hadn't even realized that she had done it, and like a dart, the little man just disappeared behind a can of hairspray, clothes and all. Don't go, she wanted to say. Please, I won't hurt you. But she didn't have to say anything. He poked his little bearded head back around to look at her to see if it was safe. Melanie closed her slitted eyes and waited patiently. It wasn't long before she felt him, and when she did, she felt a sudden rush come over her. There was but the slightest depression in the bed between her feet, lighter than a cat's weight, moving cautiously upward between her legs. Her heart pounded in perverse anticipation. This little man must be very brave to attempt such a bold undertaking. Keith snored like a bandsaw, camouflaging any sound the little man might make. She was afraid to move, but her gentleman caller could not get any further than her knees if she didn't cooperate to assist him. She felt him draw closer, finally squeezing between the hollow just below her knees. With an innocent yawning sound, she spread her legs a bit wider. He paused but did not flee. A moment later, and he was on the ascent again. He was now in the undertow of primal attraction, which guided him more now than caution. What would any other man do in his place? She felt his rough, tiny hands on the inside of her thighs, steadying himself as he came closer. His touch was oft feather-like, almost not there at all. She spread her legs further, inviting him without any words or reservation. She felt her loose lace panties drawn to the side, and then she heard the most barely audible, "Oh!" a coo of delight as he examined the prize that awaited him. She moaned. Keith snored. Melanie could not tell exactly what the little fellow was doing, but whatever it was, she had never experienced anything like it in her life before. It was as if he were trained in some ancient erotic art, the art of woman's pleasure. And if he was the artist, then she was his canvas. He was more aggressive now, less cautious, perhaps lost in the altered state of eroticism himself. As if made specifically for such a feat, the man found the spots that made her body quiver and tremble, and finally, somehow holding on with his hands and feet, he slid his entire head and body into her to explore her innermost erogenous zones. Melanie was overcome with such climactic oblivion that she could never imagine or dreamed of it. Her convulsions rocked the bed like a 7.0 earthquake. What the hell's going on? Keith flared, sitting up abruptly in the bed beside her. Melanie gasped. She was still convulsing and unable to speak, although bits of laughter rose in between breaths. The little man was gone so quickly that he seemed to have just vanished into thin air, and why not? He was certainly magic. Keith turned on the light. What the hell are you doing over there? He asked his panting wife. You're going to wake up the neighbors. Melanie's cheeks were flushed and her skin glistened with perspiration. She pulled the covers to her chin and shrugged, smiling guiltily. This is pathetic, Melanie. You're pathetic. At your age, acting like a common... And then before he finished his sentence, he stopped. Melanie looked at him. He was staring oddly at the makeup table. Did you see that? See what? Did you see that? Something moved right there. Something? He swung his feet out of the bed and stumbled around the bed to investigate. Melanie sat up, watching him. Yes, goddammit. I saw something move over here. Leprechaun? She teased, still quivering from orgasm, though she tried to suppress it. No, of course not. Wrong time of year for leprechauns. Elf, maybe. He clinked the bottles around, peering under each one like a ball and cup trick. Bah! He mumbled when nothing was found. Your delusions are contagious. I'm going to go sleep in the living room so I don't have to listen to your perversions. I've got to get some sleep. Good night, she chimed. Turn off the light, please. Keith did not sleep well on the couch that night. He dreamed of voices, little voices all around him, whispering, plotting, scheming, tiny voices that could have been the sounds that mice would make if they could talk. He could not tell what they were saying, only that there were eyes watching him. Many, many eyes. He woke an hour before sunrise, dreaming that there was a cat perched heavily upon his chest, drawing the breath from him. He was almost sure that voices instantly hushed the second his eyes fluttered open. He sat up and listened. For a full minute he listened and explored the living room in the pale morning light of new dawn. Nothing. He walked quietly through the house, looking, searching, but for what, he wasn't even exactly sure. In the darkness of his bedroom, he saw the shape of his spouse under the bed covers, now still and quiet. He felt a rare erection stirring in his pajama pants. Maybe that's what she needs, he was thinking, sliding gently back into bed with her. That's all this is. It's her way of letting me know that she still needs me. Hell, I am a man, after all, her man, and she's a woman with womanly desires. I'll let her have it, the poor thing. Pang, tang, tang rattled in the rain gutter outside. Thunk, thunk came a sound from within the wall above their headboard. Mel, did you hear that? He said to her. Suddenly there were sounds all around them. Whispers and shuffles and tiny pieces of metal clinking. Mel, he said, reaching over to shake her. What the hell's happening in here? He felt for her, but the bed covers fell flat. Melanie! He shrieked. He reached for the light. 1,000 whispering, shuffling sounds instantly went silent, as if that tiny, tiny whirlwinds slipped through every crack, under every doorway, under every loose board in the bedroom floor. The stark light came on, and Keith, wide-eyed and terrified, looked quickly about the room of madness. He cried out when he saw her. Melanie waved to him as she disappeared hand in hand with her little lover. Although an inch-wide crack between the closet door and the window frame, he had never seen such joy on the woman's face in 25 years of marriage. She couldn't have been more than 8 inches tall. Alone now in his bed, he screamed. Then he screamed again, but much longer and much louder. The end.